we're seeing this bifurcation where you have your AI power users. And so these are the people that they go home and they open up their laptop and they start using AI again.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have your other bucket, which is 9 to 5. They'll use AI if they're forced to use AI, but they really don't want to. And they're trying to keep it out of their life.
Yeah.
And so it's very clear split in the road. And so this is what we're seeing in a lot of businesses right now, which is a bit of a train headed for a bad destination.
Hey guys, Jeremy, the online ads guy here, founder of Digital Growth Marketing. So just came off a recording with Chase Aldridge. Chase is probably the smartest guy that I've interviewed on my pod so far. He used to be like a chemical engineer, scientist guy that moved into AI. So the stuff that he's working on and the stuff that him and his business partner, who is like a data scientist, the stuff they're working on is amazing. It's really on the cutting edge. But he was able to, in this episode, we were talking about the things that apply to small and medium-sized businesses, especially for the business owner. The questions that how should AI be used? What is the common pitfalls of AI? How should data be gathered? Where should you keep it? And how should you look at prompting and look at context windows is like just better than anyone who's ever explained it to me. So yeah, give it a listen. If you're a business owner doing, say, between 300K to 2 mil or even higher, I reckon, and you just want to know about AI without the sales pitch, without the stories and all the convoluted stuff, right? This guy is really good. Give it a listen. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, thanks and welcome back to another episode of Marketing for SMEs. Today I'm joined by Chase Aldridge of Glitch Cat Club. I hope I got that right. Chase, did I pronounce it right?
You did, Jeremy, and thank you. Very grateful to be here.
No, 100%, man. I've been looking forward to this conversation because when we done our pre-call, I would say that you were one of the people that I knew was going to be good because you kind of allowed me to get my ideas out there. Because you know how we're talking about like workflows, how AI can help. I run into people all the time, right? Live and getting pitched and talking to people. And a lot of them is like they want to go and help small businesses, small medium-sized businesses, but they're not understanding the people aspect of it. As in like a lot of people, they don't want your help. Like maybe the owner is excited for like a month, but everybody has to change their workflow. They have to they are feeling threatened. Or they feel like, man, like you don't know everything we built in the last 2 years to get to this point. How are you going to just plug something in and all of a sudden, you think you fixed it? You haven't. So I feel like that was a good conversation that we had. And yeah, man, so I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell the audience a bit about like how you got to where you got to, and then maybe your business partner or what the business is up to now.
Absolutely, man. Love to jump into it. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I played baseball competitively from a very young age.
Oh, yeah.
Actually started doing biomechanics research when I was 14 years old with a guy named Tom House.
Wow, nice.
So just very blessed and, right place, right time. And my dad and him built a good relationship. And so ended up playing baseball in college, went on to study chemistry and math. And in college, I did research for organic chemistry, electrochemistry, and also X-ray spectroscopy. So
you're deep. So you're like deep into it, but at the same time you played baseball, which
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I was the guy that had a periodic table hanging up in my house.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah. Because my son plays baseball now. So because we're in Australia, baseball's not that big here. He's only 5 years old, but but it was big in America. Yeah. That type of thing.
Yeah. Very big. And my dad had played in the minor leagues, so he had a passion for it. I had a passion for it.
Yeah. Crazy. Sorry, I interrupted your story, but please go on. Yeah, so chemistry and baseball, yep.
Yeah, chemistry and baseball, those are my roots. So, ended up doing research in college in quite a few different chemistry disciplines. Went on to actually work at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, which is a particle accelerator, so it's a synchrotron.
Wow, it's crazy. That's like the thing, whenever I hear that word, it's my only contact was Da Vinci's Code. That thing they were doing. Yeah, it's not that, but you know what I mean? Like, this is the closest I've come to it, yeah. Okay, cool, all right, yep.
Yeah, it's a big old, I'm not even going to call it a machine because the place is absolutely massive and all the instrumentation is, but it slings particles around electrons, and as they bend, they emit light. So then you
Wow.
use that light to actually probe the surfaces of materials and look at them.
Wow, that's crazy. Right. So if you fast forward that to then how'd you get into like what we're doing now with this stuff? Is this right
Yeah.
in your alley?
Yeah, this was early life. So probably
Yeah.
early 20s that I was doing this research, and that ended up
Yeah.
actually leading me out to Colorado here.
Yeah.
I was working at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, so I was doing research full time for about
Right.
6 years.
Okay. Right. So how do you join the dots to, like what we're doing now? What you're doing now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a couple steps away. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
my dad passed unexpectedly, and so like any major life event, it really made me step back and consider what's important in life. Where I wanted to spend my time, and instead of working in a lab all the time, albeit I loved it and I was a kid in a
Yeah.
playground basically, I realized that I wanted to make money so that I
Yeah.
could provide for my mom and my future family. And so that
Mm-hmm.
actually led me into commercial real estate. So I started working in syndications, which is putting together
Yeah.
money and teams
Yeah.
or buying apartment complexes in the US.
Yeah. That's very different to
Very, very different.
like was it just one of these things where you were like had the connections, had the resources around you, one thing led to another, someone told you that, okay, come with us for a bit?
Not at all, actually. I
Right.
think just from a very young age, I was exposed to a financial freedom and
Yeah.
what that looks like. And so I had dipped my toes in e-commerce, had dipped my toes in MLMs.
Yeah. I like that.
I always
Yeah.
had my eyes open for
Yeah. Yeah.
that vehicle. And so
Yeah.
I bought a duplex out here in Colorado and I house hacked it. So I lived on one side and then I
Yeah.
fixed it up, added value into it, and
What would you
ended
just
up,
call it? What's the technical term? Would you just call it?
yeah, house hacking.
House hacking. Okay, no, or like people do it here, but we never heard of the term before. House hacking. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a big website. It's called biggerpockets.com.
Yeah.
And that was my first introduction into the real estate space. And so from there, I realized that, okay, well, if 2 units, you can do this, you can do this with 2 units. Well,
Yeah.
what about 100 units? And
Yeah.
that kind of opened my eyes to the economy of scale whenever it comes to investing in either residential or commercial real estate.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, that's yeah.
So that led me, funny enough, to Marcus and Millichap, which is a commercial real estate brokerage. So I went and got my broker's license,
Yeah.
learned from the best there, and then had a partner, took a 100K loss. Like anyone in business that's an entrepreneur, we all
Yeah.
have our war stories, our cuts and bruises. And after that, I decided that I wanted to shift over from the sales side of things back into, I'm going to call it being a nerd.
Yeah.
And so for the last 2 years, I've just been doing AI full time, AI and automations.
Yeah. So was there a trigger point where you go, oh, look at this, let me get back into here, or a trigger event like?
Such a good question, actually. So my partner, the one with that I took a nice loss on,
Yeah.
we were like the yin and yang. So
Right.
he loved talking to people. He was so good at it. He'd be your best friend
Yeah.
in 5 minutes or less,
Yeah.
and have
yeah,
you
I like
laughing. And you're like, dude, I want this guy to come to my wedding.
that.
Like he's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
best man status, but he's almost there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I
Yeah.
love building systems. So it was the perfect, I'll build the systems based on what we learned at Marcus and Millichap and a funnel essentially. And he loved working the funnel, loved talking to people. And so after that dissolved, I
Yeah.
think that I was so deep into the system side of things that then
Ah.
AI was just such an obvious next step was automations and AI.
Like a tool, like so you can build a system and then like the tool was going to solve real problems. Cool. All right, nice. I mean for this episode, I'm hoping to cover like if we talk about the system and covering for small and medium-sized businesses. I think the few bullet points that I put down was where AI can genuinely save time, what SMEs need to clean up before implementing it, why adoption fails when staff hate the new workflow, how to think about security and trust. I think that's something that your current business partner talks a lot about as well. What second brain infrastructure means in plain English, 'cause that's a huge one that you are that's a hill that you're willing to die on, and what they should start documenting now. So, it's not going to be Q&A style. We just talk and, whenever it's covered, I think. But going before that, you wrote to me an email about the episode, and one of the words you used was bifurcation between AI users. Okay, so I didn't know what that means. I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I had to look it up. Basically, you're seeing two different buckets of AI users. You got the hardcores and you got the 9 to 5ers, right? Like I see that as well. Like I don't see it as two, because I see different shades kind of thing. But like, let me know what you're seeing and the experience that was it Boulder that.
Yeah, Boulder,
Yeah.
Colorado, and
Yeah.
Jeremy, you're spot on. We're seeing this bifurcation where you have your AI power users, and so
Yeah.
these are the people that they go home and they open up their laptop and they start using AI again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have your other bucket, which is 9 to 5. They'll use AI if they're forced to use AI, but they really don't want to, and they're trying to keep it out of their life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's very clear split in the road. And so this is what we're seeing in a lot of businesses right now, which is a bit of a train headed for a bad destination, because after AI, your power users get good enough at using it and AI continues to progress. Why would you need that other bucket, right? Not to sound not to sound harsh or anything, but this is how business owners are thinking when we have conversations.
That's massive. So are you saying that, well, this is all personal opinion, right? I'm not
Totally
gonna, there's
personal
no
opinion.
trick questions, there's no gotcha questions. So you're saying that for the 9 to 5ers, right, for whatever reason, that they're not like, they don't like it, there's hallucination, or they go, oh, it's stealing my data, whatever reason that they don't want to be power users, right? Are you saying that they definitely need to get on board, whether they like it or not? But they can't be a power user because they don't have the passion for it. So what's the crossover? What's the enough? Like, because I don't code, right? I've never coded. So I have the immense, tremendous respect for coders because I can't do a closed bracket. I don't even know how to read it. So like for someone like me, there's only so much I can do before people start talking about, oh, if you just, do this, and I say, oh man, like I'm not going to do that. So what happens?
Well, so Jeremy, that's kind of the trick of it, is that you don't actually have to dive in all the way to the deepest end. So that power user bucket, albeit it is best if you are in that bucket for your long-term projection.
Yeah.
You don't have to truly be in that bucket. But what you have to do, the bare minimum, is understand how LLMs work, understand how AI works. A lot of people think that it's just magic, right? It's mystical. It's all knowing.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, you see hallucinations. And so understanding LLMs just guess the next token. That's all they're doing, is based on the data that they're trained on, they are going to guess what the next best token is. And so as our models have gotten better, and as new releases of frontier models come out, they're better at guessing that next token, but they're still just guessing the next token. And so once you start to understand this, you can clarify how you communicate with your large language model, whether that's, you're using Anthropic's Claude, or you're using OpenAI's ChatGPT or Google's Gemini, whatever it may be. Once you understand how to communicate with the model, you 10x your output.
Yeah. Okay. So does that mean that you make it do better? I'm just asking from a layman's perspective. Yeah. Like you just make it like have better guesses, or you give it more information, kind of. Because I know the hype word right now, as my friend tells me, it's the word harness, right? So that's what everyone's using, or whatever, like the bigger boys are using. So is that we just kind of like confine or give it more limitations what it's guessing, or like just give it as much information as possible kind of thing? Because I think laymen's even understand that bit, or even though they don't do it very well, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So harnesses are a very, very interesting one. And just to give a little bit of background on harnesses, or rather a little additional context here.
Yes, please. Yep.
Just, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, Anthropic came out and they said that the harness is just as important as the model.
Yeah.
Well, Google decided to take it a little bit further, and they said that it could be as much as 90% of the performance is based on the harness, and the other 10% is based on the model.
Wow.
And so that really goes to tell you how important the harness truly is. Yeah. Now, what is the harness? Well, the harness is it's like the framework of your car, right? Let's say that the model, the LLM, is the engine. That's the powerhouse. That's what you're going to run things through. Yeah. Well, different cars have different bodies. They have different wheels. They have all of these things, and they're optimized for whatever their use is, right? If it's a race car, it's low to the ground, it's slick. Maybe it's a minivan, right? It's designed, doesn't go that fast, but it's designed to get your family from point A to point B safely. And so the harness is this custom framework that is around the model, and it guides it. It controls what it can and cannot do. So it also injects context at the right moment. So instead of like flooding a model with all the context, it's able to look at when should we add this context, because context engineering is a phrase that really just means controlling what context you're giving the model.
Context engineering. It's the first time I heard of it. Okay, cool. Yeah, nice. Right. So if we join the dots back for SMEs, so is this related to SMEs? Like, is it about like the 9-to-5ers knowing what harness to pick, or even just using the word more often to make sure they don't get fired? Like, that kind
No,
of thing? Like,
we're getting we're
yeah.
more on the frontier side of it, talking
Okay,
about
tell me.
harnesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
So
cool. Got you.
SMEs really don't need to worry about them right now.
Okay. All right.
Honestly, most of them, it's a data problem first and foremost, because if you have messy data, you have messy processes.
Yep.
AI is just going to amplify that. So even if you put the best harness on it, which each harness is actually kind of customized, which makes it tricky, right? Because you have to be in the field to customize it, or working with someone that can customize it for your use case.
Yeah.
And that's why I think most SMEs don't even need to worry about harnesses. If they hear it right now, know that it's there, but it's not the important thing that I would focus on. I would focus on, and it's boring, but it's just cleaning data and clean processes, because AI amplifies things.
I don't think that's boring. I think that's super important. Yeah, so I think that's super important because I tell you what I'm doing now to build my personality, because I've got a team of 9 and, not everyone's going to be able to think about reporting and stuff like me. So I'm downloading all of my Loom videos, all of my Zoom videos, transcribing, categorizing, tagging. And then that's quite quick. And then but I haven't had formal training from you, Chase. I'm just saying, like, this is my little brain logically thinking, well, this will help, right? And so, yes, please tell me, like, what are you thinking?
Well,
Like,
Jeremy,
what
you're
you
putting a
thinking?
smile on my face just hearing that, because that is organization. And to
Yeah.
anyone that implements AI systems,
Yeah.
music to their ears. You have an organized system already that you are cataloging and tagging things.
Yeah. So how
That
do
is
we implement that? So so how does LLMs then take that information and be like where do I put it? Like, where do I put it where the LLMs be like, okay, got you. That's where I'll look from. Yeah.
That's a great question, and there's a couple different answers. I think the most basic one that most people could use is what's called Obsidian. And so Obsidian has become very popular. It is a program that all it does is it stores files and allows you to view them, and it's natively written in what's called Markdown. And Markdown is just a file type.
Right.
So really, it's a folder structure with a visualization aspect to it.
Right. And how does Obsidian, again, layman question, because I've seen that word pop up. So how is that different to, because we'd use MCP for our Google ads and meta ads just so we can query it, right? To create an environment, say, hey, look in this folder kind of thing. So this is different to Obsidian, in your opinion, right? Query, reporting and all that. So, and then we say, for the brain, for the machine to point it to one folder. Is it get the information from this folder, right? If you're going to do the reporting, because all the context is there, or the previous reports you can learn from, how we like it. Is that folder very different to the idea of Obsidian?
It is a little bit. So it's the same general folder architecture. You're on the right path there. The thing that Obsidian does is it also allows you to link things inside of it. So you could have a relationship between a file over here, file A, and then file X over here.
Wow.
And so that connection, it'll create a graph that you're able to actually visualize all of the connections between your folders, your files, your relationships with people. And so this is how an LLM, if you were to point it to something, it's able to then see, okay, this file is also linked to these 3 people. And now it knows, okay, I might need to grab information from those 3 linked folders or files.
Yes, instead of everything else. You kind of give a direction.
Versus, let's say you're using Google Drive and you say, hey, I want to go grab this folder or this file that's pointed in this folder. It's just going to return that, and it's not going to add any of the additional context for relationships that might exist. But Google Drive doesn't allow you to build those connections.
No, it doesn't. So if we're talking about, like, just say a practical case, you don't have to give a real life example of clients or whatever, but let's just say a practical case of a SME wanting to do it. And let's just say this person is really keen. He's not techie. He's really keen. And he goes and gets Obsidian, right? Like, what are an example of 2 connections that was going to happen where you wouldn't have happened otherwise?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. Let's say you have in your root folder, right? So that's your highest level folder. You have a subfolder that says people, one that says processes, one that says projects, and you're inside of projects and you have a client, right? That client, there's going to be, let's say it's the company is company XYZ,
Sure.
for lack of a better one. Inside of there's going to be files, and those files might be processes within different teams of the organization, right? Well, those files might need to connect back to your relationships with people, right? And remember, back in the root folder, we had that people subfolder. So now that we're inside of projects, we're 3 or 4 levels deep, and we're looking at an SOP here, well, it also connects back to a person. And so maybe you had conversations with that person. You have transcripts that are stored. You have relational data inside of there. It's able to retrieve that information and use it as it's working through whatever problem you've given it.
Right. So it'll give a better answer, much better answer than otherwise. Okay. Let's just say this person didn't have Obsidian, right? So basically, they're in the process folder, they're in the SOP, and okay. So how am I using it? I'm using it as in I'm querying it. Is that what I'm doing? I'm saying, oh, talk to me about XYZ company when we have to offboard them or something like that. Is that like how am I using it at the very like rudimentary level? Am I just asking questions, or I'm just looking for things?
So let's say you have your model that you're working with, you're chatting with, and you have an MCP that connects to your Obsidian. Maybe you want to see, hey, what projects do we have due up this upcoming week? And so then it needs to actually go and traverse all of your project folders and find it. And then return back all of that information. And so it's providing the right context at the right time.
Okay, cool. Got you. So just say I'll have MCP connected to it, and I was like training a new person. I go, tell me we are going to onboard a client. They're going to be very similar to XYZ company. Can you just pull up all the information so I can train this new trainee so I don't have to do it myself? Right. So if I was sending them to a Google Drive, there's going to be some things made up. Like he's just looking at it and he's thinking about a lot of other stuff and he's thinking about other clients, and that's the answer. But now that I'm in the Obsidian and I've organized and I've tagged it, it's going to give a much better answer because it kind of links the story. And so the next question, the logical question for SME is like, how difficult is the linking game? Like, is it just tags?
It's just tags.
Pretty efficient?
Yeah, it's pretty efficient. Yeah, it's super
very
simple.
Excited. I never had this conversation before. I'm very excited to do this because I'm right in the middle of it. Yeah, man.
And one other thing that I want to add that provides a little bit more detail too is that these models have, I'm sure you've heard of a context window, right? So it's like how many tokens that you can use. Some of the early models were around the 200,000. Now we're at 1 million. Well, that sounds all fine and dandy. We 5x'd our context window, but the problem is that models still start to degrade at about 120 to 150,000 tokens.
Doesn't matter how much you give it.
To your example of the Google Drive, if let's say you were to use the MCP for the Google Drive and it has to go and look through all of these places and it finds the right context, but it got way too much context. And now it provides all of that back to the model, and the model, maybe you're at 100,000 tokens and you just jumped up to 250,000. You feel like you're fine because you're like, oh, I have 750,000 of tokens left. But really you have 750,000 tokens of hallucination that's just going to get worse and worse.
And so, as you keep going.
Exactly. Efficiently adding that context in there is the name of the game.
So the name of the game is, just say that technology stays where it is now, right? So the king of this, the person who masters this is the person who can work out how to keep under 150 tokens, because that's where the brain is at maximum, right? The best, and then not go over that, if necessarily, kind of thing. Because that's going to cover the best answer.
Oftentimes, yeah. So that is one of the strategies there. There's quite a few of them that you need to put all together, and they need to work cohesively in order to get the absolute best. But for anyone that's just starting off, the window length is one of the best things that they can start paying attention to. Because, Jeremy, I know people that they don't ever refresh or restart a window. They are just running the same conversation every time.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. Okay. I can see it though. You know what I mean? Like I can see it. Like they don't know what's better. Do you know what I mean? They're like, man, like this is where the stuff was remembered. Now he remembers me right here, So let's just keep it. That's such an interesting conversation because I don't think, I tell you something that I feel like that people are not going to get the right information like on their own. So they are not interested enough to go dig deep. on how to do this themselves, and they're too embarrassed to ask someone because then they found out, like they say, oh man, how dumb are you? How you not know this, you know?
Well,
So
and it's even worse nowadays, man. Sorry to jump in, but it's just, I think
no,
so
no.
important is that we're in the AI gold rush right now, and everyone's
Yeah.
selling shovels.
Yeah,
And
everyone's selling
so,
shovels.
how do you
Yeah.
know whose shovel to buy? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard problem, really.
But it's a wild time as well, I think. Like I started digital marketing 8 years ago, right? And that was I think the gold rush for SEO
Mm.
has already finished. But SEO was, at that time where they were putting white text on white paper, they were cramming whatever keywords and nothing else mattered. That was a gold rush too. I think it's much smaller than what we're doing now. But I think that this is the era for that right now. Everyone trying to figure it out. Dude, I know that we had so much more to talk about, but I'd love for you to come back on another episode, maybe like a month or whatever later. You got to explain this, dude. I never had this explained to me. And in that time, I would have finished my tagging game, right, with my thing, and I'll tell you where I end up, because that's exactly what I'm going to do, yeah. So, yeah, we didn't end up covering all the things that we wanted to cover, but can you tell us about the Glitch Cat Club? And I was looking at the website. I go, man, that's a cool website. And your partner came from like a white collar kind of thing, yeah? Running big teams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big teams, big data.
Yeah. Please tell us more about the situation there.
Yeah, so over the last 8 months or so, I've been building out my own personal AI assistant, developing my harness, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized was it reaches kind of a critical mass where it starts not being able to retrieve the right context at the right time. Yeah. And so the system starts breaking down. And I think that everyone is, they're on a freight train that's barreling towards this cliff where context is going to start losing. They're going to start, it's not going to inject it in the right places. And even some of my friends that were also working on harnesses experience the same thing. So realizing that this was a big data problem, I found the right business partner who he has nearly 20 years in investment banking. He has consulted for the top four. He's led teams of 100 people at Deutsche Bank and some really notable places. And so this is something the last 2 months that we've been working on this problem. We've been building out a framework that we can share with other people and help not only teach people how to properly use AI, but also provide them a framework that they can build off of that's deterministic. So it's not going to behave in ways that you don't want it to. It's going to remove that uncertainty and the probabilistic nature of LLMs.
Okay, nice. So who is this for? Like, because I watch YouTube, it's like techie, like you guys go hard. Do you know what I mean? Like you guys go deep. He was very good at explaining stuff as he starts doing it, right? But still, it goes hard. Like it's not for the time poor entrepreneur, I guess. So who is it? Who is it tailored for?
Yeah, so our it's really tailored towards the owner operator. So this is small business owners, and what we encourage is that they start using Glitch inside of their own personal life, because that's what Glitch was built around. It was built around the idea of a life operating system where it not only ran your business or helped you run your business, but it also was your best friend, right? You were able to consult it for any kind of advice or any feedback, anything that you needed help with, and it had all the context on you. And was able to provide you, good information. It's almost like a partner in crime. If you want to go and start scraping some stuff off the internet, you're like, hey, you go do this for me.
Yeah.
And so really the owner operator, I think, is who this is for. It's the owner that is still operating in the business today and knows that they are going to need to adopt AI at some point.
Yeah, cool. So when we were talking about in the pre-call and the examples you're giving me, it sounded like the guy doesn't even have to be in business. Like anyone could have, like, do you know what I mean? Like he could have just helped his own life and stuff, like help him juggle things. If the guy's an introvert, like he can go, let's get some information this way and kind of converse with it. Would you say that, or is it really not for that?
Spot on. Dude, we really, that Tony Stark Jarvis.
Yeah, that thing, yeah.
And we're definitely, we have that in our foresight. Like that's something we want. So
yeah, no, because I think business owners, and everyone markets to business owners. So kind of like whoever screams the loudest is gonna get their attention, kind of thing. Whereas your one is like your approach, like just me and you talking to each other, and some of the stuff that you've like your branding and stuff is more like chilled. Like, you know what I mean? It's very, very easy to connect with. That's what I like. But so, yeah, man, thank you for everything that you shared. Where can people find you? And let's just say that, everything works out. Like, would you be happy to jump on again in like a month's time to talk a bit more about the other stuff that you were talking about?
Absolutely, man. I'd love to jump on
Pumped.
again. Could talk
Yeah.
about this stuff all day. And if people want to learn more or they want to jump in, glitchcatclub.com is where they can find more about me and more about Glitch.
Yeah, I love it. And then they can connect with you on LinkedIn and stuff, I guess, if they want you as a guest to talk about more on their podcast and things like that. Yeah, and if you've listened to this far, definitely give Chase Aldridge a look and give his website a look, because I looked at the glitchcatclub.com's when I look at the website, I said, wow, this is very, very different. And it's, yeah, I didn't know the deep background that you had in science, and you're coming up, because there's a lot of, everyone's in AI now. Do you know what I mean? Like, they could have came from everywhere, but I always start with the street cred bit. And then your street cred is deep. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. And yeah, we're going to try to get this man back if we can. All right, thanks, guys. Cool. What's up, Jeremy Yang, the online ads guy here, owner of Digital Glass Marketing. If you found whatever you're watching helpful, you found it interesting, like, subscribe, comment, suggest other topics you think we should cover here. We've aimed to release weekly episodes, helping SMEs with marketing, advertising, talking to professionals about growth, processes, all that good stuff. All right, see you on the next one.